everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gitte Mary and today I'm going to be reacting to some greenwashing products, some greenwashing campaigns and generally some brands that just have the absolute audacity. I've done a couple of videos like this before, so if you're interested in any of those, I will link them in the description down below. There is both another reaction video to recent greenwashing campaigns, and then there is a video about the different types of greenwashing and how to spot it and how they differentiate from each other. I asked you guys on Instagram if you had stumbled upon any greenwashing campaigns or products lately. If you had, you are very free to send them to me. That's, you know, a standing offer. You can always do that. I'll save it and I'll make another video. By the way, these buttons are very loud, so if you hear any clicking, that's probably what that is. Honestly, it's a little bit soothing. One of you guys sent me a picture of these Bounty paper towels. So first of all, there is the green color, which is an absolute classic slash cliche when it comes to greenwashing, because it's literally what it is. And we talked about this more in the different types of greenwashing video and the impact of using different colors. For instance, in the 80s and in the 90s, we used a lot of really bright yellow, reds and blues. But over time, consumers have grown to respond much more positively to muted tones, to earth tones, to greens and to different types of browns and beige that sort of signals local production, sustainable packaging. And the packaging might be the completely same as the previous ones, but simply by putting on a different color, you can change the consumer response. Then there's also the use of different types of words that can imply greenwashing. Something that's nature inspired, like they write here on the Bounty packaging, doesn't mean anything at all, really. What does nature inspired mean? Does it mean that they did things to the product to take better care of nature? Does it mean that they just went out on a field trip into nature and thought, that's a cool leaf, we'll print that on the packaging? We don't really know what that's supposed to mean, but the word association of natural and of nature makes us think that this product is more sustainable or generally better than a product that does not have these words on it. And generally when it comes to this stuff, words like nature, eco, sustainable, you don't need any proof to put these words on your packaging or to use these words to describe your product. There are no certifications in place to make sure that if you say something is eco or natural, then it has to live up to certain standards, otherwise you can't use these words. There's nothing of that sort present. So people can use these words to describe whatever they want, and that can be really misleading to consumers. So that's some of the things that I definitely see on this packaging at first glance, but there are other things, because then I started to look into what are they saying about their products, because sustainability is on every company's agenda at this point. Literally, the company that produces the most plastic packaging in the world and who's the #1 polluter of natural environments, Coca-Cola, has a huge page on their website about sustainability. So it is to be expected that if you want to find out whether or not a company is being sustainable, going to their website and looking for a sustainability page folder will get you literally nowhere, because every company has it and it is filled to the brim with absolute nonsense. So let's take a look at what they're writing on the website. So 100% of Bounty's virgin fibers are sourced from responsibly managed forests. 50% is FSC certified and the rest is certified by other recognized organizations. Okay, see, all of this sounds really great. FSC is to some extent okay, but definitely is not a perfect organization whatsoever. I talk more about them in my certification guide, so I will also leave that down below if you want to know more about what FSC really entails and how effective it is. Spoiler alert, not always very. But other recognized organizations, they do mention other organizations that they have partnered up with or that they are supporting on their website, but there's nothing about actual certification or actual, you know, management. So donating things to a forest preservation organization is not the same as being certified by them, you know? But there's another thing that I think we need to discuss here as well, because they write on the website that their products are 100% elemental chlorine free, aka ECF. Well, I know a lot of consumers are worried about chlorine and chloride contamination. Producing things with chloride can have a really detrimental effect on the environment because there's wastewater and it's flushed out into our water. It completely destroys biodiversity and just ecosystems. It's not amazing. And it seems like Bounty know this, so they've made a really good job at not explaining at all what they do. Elementally chlorine free means that no chlorine is used. However, other chemicals containing chlorine are used for bleaching, and a product that's free from elemental chlorine chlorine is often misrepresented as a product that's completely free of chlorine, and those two are not the same thing. And I can guarantee you they're not totally chlorine free. Then they would have stated that on their website, and probably in bolder letters as well. So they are using chlorine, they are using bleach products, and that has a huge effect on the environment, but no one can see that because we put nature inspired on our packaging. To sort of wrap this bounty issue as well, I think it's also important to note that using kitchen towels, disposable kitchen towels, might not be the best sustainable idea. There are so many reusable alternatives. You can use knitted, crocheted cloths instead. It's definitely another story when it comes to toilet paper, but using a bidet will reduce the amount of toilet paper that you use with 50%, so that's a good way to be sustainable. And then there are really cool, amazing and sustainable toilet paper brands out there like Cloud Paper, like Who Gives a Crap, like Green Cane. There's definitely options when it comes to paper towels and when it comes to toilet paper and when it comes to sustainable swaps, but Bounty paper is not one of them. A lot of Danish subscribers linked me to this webpage from a Danish manufacturer of vitamin supplements who has always had these great glass containers for their supplements, but is now, because of environmental reasons, changing to plastic. And they have some funny reasoning on their website that I think we should go over, because this is not at all the first time I've seen these arguments being made, and I think it's a good idea to talk about what they mean and what they lack specifically. So let's take a look at it. So on their website they state that because they care about the environment, livol is changing the glass packaging, and this gives an average CO2 reduction of 35% of the packaging production. If you produce a kilo of plastic, that will have less CO2 emissions than if you want to produce a kilo of glass, because glass is heavier. However, the impact of a product does not only come from the production impact. There's so much more to it that I think we should take into consideration. Also, if you're interested in both the impact of glass or plastic, I have impact videos about those. So if you want to know the entire journey for a glass to be made, or for plastic to be made, I have both those videos available to you as well. A product's overall impact does not only come from the production, and specifically when we talk about glass, the initial production impact is actually quite high, but there are other benefits down the line. livol also states that if their new packaging is recycled correctly, it can be recycled over and over again. And I guess some of you know what I'm going to say now. Plastic cannot be recycled over and over again. The Mobius circle of plastic is a complete misrepresentation of how plastic recycling works. Plastic is always downcycled because to uphold the quality of plastic, you constantly need to add virgin plastic to the material. So a plastic water bottle can very rarely be turned into a new identical plastic water bottle. Instead, it will be used as isolation or fillings in coats or sleeping bags. It will be turned into small trays or to used as building materials. So plastic is not recycled in a closed continuous loop. It's recycled in a downward spiral until there is a final destination for the plastic. And on average, plastic can only be recycled between 2 to 3 times, and then you have to add new plastic to the mix to make sure it upholds the quality that the plastic is required to have. So these statements, I feel like, are very misleading, and it definitely seems as though they're missing 80% of the story, or 80% of the explanation of what's happening here. Okay. Glass can be recycled indefinitely, and it also has a much higher recycling rate than plastic. On a global average, only 4 to 6% of all plastic is recycled, even when we count the plastic that is actually sorted as recycling. You're not guaranteed that that stuff is recycled either, and glass has a much higher recycling rate. And generally, if something grinds my gear, it's a company that tries to make the argument that their product is sustainable if you handle it correctly afterwards. Because yeah, obviously, that's always the case. You know, that's not unique to your product. That's always something that's happening, and it's definitely putting all the responsibility of doing the sustainable thing, or like adding sustainability to the product. It puts it all on the consumer, which is not necessarily what we need to do. We need to hold companies accountable and make sure that they have implemented structures and systems so that there's sustainability aspects implemented into the products before it has to be recycled, you feel? If they really wanted to innovate their packaging, and if they really wanted to make sure that there are sustainable measures being taken, why not talk about refilling stations? Why not talk about reusable packaging? Why does it have to be disposable? You know, the supplements. The packaging could be refilled. Let's be real. Now, I don't think I can ever make a greenwashing video without talking about H&M, but that's simply because that they find new ways to opt their BS every single time. And it seems like more and more people are getting alarmed about it. So a lot of you guys sent me a link to Tolmay's post where she's sitting in a window display of an H&M store surrounded by their newest campaign posters with a little fuck H&M sign, and that sums up my emotions pretty greatly, I think. Also, go give her a follow, she's an absolute queen. So let's talk a little bit about these posters, you know. Their signs read, "The future belongs to those who will live in it." Eco warrior, climate crusader, it all starts with planting a seed. Any age and you can be a role model, including 48. Helena Helmerson, who's been the CEO of H&M since January 2020, and ultimately the person responsible for not paying their workers during a global pandemic. You know, sweatshop workers will have to live in the future too, so does that future also belong to them? I'm just asking for a friend. So there are so many problems with the fast fashion industry in general, and I also have an impact video about fast fashion, what do you know? So if you want to know more about sweatshops and child labor and resource exploitation and their wastewater pollution, there's so much stuff going on, and H&M is just in the forefront of this, because while producing way too much clothes, while having 50 different seasons a year, so you constantly have excuses to change up your selection of clothes and produce more and waste more, then they're also one of the fast fashion companies that I see that try the hardest to convince consumers that they're green. They both have a conscious line, which is an absolute pathetic attempt at sustainability, because you can't have your normal selection of clothes, then make another selection of clothes, and then tell people that you're sustainable. You just made more clothes. Instead of trying to implement sustainable measures into the clothes that you are now making, you just made more clothes. Now, I also think it's important to talk about how incredibly manipulative and exploitive it is to use child advocates and activists in campaigns like this. Okay, so nothing against the children. They are badass, amazing children. Just like whenever I criticize any fast fashion company, I don't go after the model who is wearing clothes. In the same way, this has nothing to do with the children. I so thoroughly hope they're being paid to be used in these contexts, but it is incredibly manipulative. If we look at it, there's not really any claims here. It's just all these soft, vague association vibes. You catch my drift? So from where I'm sitting, okay, this is a campaign that is 100% made to make the association in consumers' mind that H&M is on the same side as climate and environmental activists. And they're literally on the opposite side. I mean, we talk about on this channel all the time how so many consumers are willing to make life a little bit harder to be more sustainable and to make changes and to make sacrifices to be more sustainable. So I don't think it's too much to expect that a company is willing to make sacrifices as well, but there are no sacrifices being made here. The premise of all of this is that they can be sustainable without really changing their brand. This is definitely made to try to convince consumers who've probably heard bad things about H&M and is unsure whether or not it's true, whether or not to support them. This is sort of to give those people a nudge into the direction of, we're fine, you guys, we support the cause, we are the same, you and I. Okay, and the last brand that I want to talk about today is Gillette. So Gillette has come out with a Planet Kind collection, and this is something we see quite often, and I want to get into the specifics of what this entails, but before I do so, I'm always skeptical whenever I see a company that makes all of these things out here, and then they make a tiny collection of things here that are better than these things, but they don't change these things, they just have both collections now. The same thing as H&M's conscious line, because you have this thing over here. Whenever people point towards Gillette and go, but you know, you could be more sustainable, they can shove that in the front and go, we have this collection, we've actually done the work, we've actually made sure that we have sustainable products. But that means absolutely nothing if they still do all the other things as well. I keep repeating myself, but apparently it's necessary. Okay, so let's see what they say about this Planet Kind collection. So they say that 85% recycled plastic and paper packaging that's also recyclable, plus a razor handle that's made with 60% recycled plastic. And they also have some metal containers that they advertise are infinitely recyclable. However, the containers with this message on them are not made from recycled materials, but are made from virgin materials. And you know, producing new metal, just like producing new glass, has a pretty high impact, but you can, again, same as with glass, you can recycle it over and over, so it shouldn't be that difficult to make a recycled aluminium or recycled glass container. That's pretty straightforward, so I'm wondering why they didn't do that. Because that requires more work, and it's easier to simply just put a little label on it that says, well, it is actually recyclable. Okay, honey, but what did you do? Also, you can also see the small circular arrowed loops, which are present on the metal packaging where it makes more sense, but it's also present on the plastic packaging where it makes no sense because it's misleading. You don't recycle plastic like this. Okay. I couldn't find any information about whether or not they wanted to implement the things that they do in the Planet Kind collection into their regular selection. No information. So a pet peeve of mine is definitely when a company tries to imply that their product is sustainable because it can be recycled if the consumer chooses to recycle it. And you know, consumers don't always have the power to determine whether or not something can be recycled, because the options you have for recycling as an individual is very dependent on the facilities available to you. And some regions, some countries, some cities don't have certain types of recycling while others do. It varies a lot. So a pet peeve of mine is definitely when companies use recyclability as their main component of sustainability. You know, that's not anything. You cannot simply make a product that's recyclable and say that you did something for sustainability. That's not a sustainable product make. In their sustainable container mindset, they put this under product description. Product information is printed directly on the pack, so less material is used. And that's amazing if you've done tons of other things to improve all your products as well. But I cannot help but feel that this is a tiny little detail. And often something that I see with bigger companies is that they tend to focus on these tiny small details a whole lot more than they tend to focus on supply chain transparency and making sure that they're not using any harmful chemicals in the process of making their products, and before they change up disposable items in from the product line to more reusable products. And they tend to focus on these really teeny tiny small changes that look really great on paper, and it's something that you can often see when you have the product as a consumer. It's something that you can notice. But I would just really like to see more of the other stuff. What is the point here? Well, the point is to be critical, especially of the larger corporations that are trying to go green, and to really take everything they say with a grain of salt. And even if they make one claim over here, they might very well do the exact opposite thing in 99% of the cases of their other products, you know. So it's important to see the whole picture and to not just let yourself be impressed with a tiny little change when there's so much other stuff going on. And this is not only something we can talk about when it comes to bigger corporations. This is something that generally is to be expected with sustainable lifestyles. I'm just very over big companies trying to go green at this point, without any plans to make less products, pay their workers better, change what kind of products that they make, and change their values and supply chains. You know, that's what I want to see, and no one is giving me that, and that's really frustrating. At least these brands are not giving that to me. So let me know if you want more of these videos, and if you want me to react to more of these things as well. I would love to do so. You can always tag me or send me links to greenwashing, and I'll save it for the next video. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you liked it. If you did, you can leave me a comment down below, and you know, let me know what you want to see on this channel going forward. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Please remember to like up this video and subscribe if you haven't already. That makes my day, you know. Take really good care of yourselves. Until next time, bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green zero waste contents, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!